Ramachandra. We have had a tradition in Denmark to be fearful of engaging in politics. So many churches and many church lives, it has been a world we could not really connect to. So we're very much focused internally in the church, and it was not common ground to go and engage in politics. So now we've seen a society where the Christian ethical voice has been very low for many years. Would you have any practical advice from other places in the world where you could see a revival of the re-engagement in a struggle for a better society, or are there any examples worldwide where you can see how we can re-establish a connection to government and politicians and what we could do?
Well, I don't think it's true what you're saying, that Christians have not engaged in politics. I mean, maybe the church as a church has not, and often the church cannot as a church directly engage, but I mean individual Christians, I'm sure in this country, have been part of parliaments, have worked to change laws, to promote justice. I'm not familiar with your history, but I'm sure in every European country.
Very few in Denmark, over the past 20 years.
I mean, we mustn't just identify Christian political action with just being in party politics. Politics is much wider than just working through particular political parties. Every movement that seeks to defend the rights of a particular community is engaging in political action, whether that community is made up of a religious minority, disabled people, and so on. And historically, Christians have been in the forefront. If you look at the history of the feminist movement, for example, there were many Christians in the early years in the 19th century, particularly in the USA, in Britain. I'm not that familiar with your history. So those are histories that we need to recover and teach in our churches. What Christians have historically contributed to the development of political institutions. Like I mentioned even earlier, the whole language of human rights comes out of the canon lawyers of the 12th century. This morning I spoke from Basil of Caesarea and Aquinas about the rights of the poor. That rich Christian political tradition is largely ignored in our seminaries, in our churches. And that's where I would want to begin, by recovering that Christian theology, that Christian history, and teaching it. I would also want to point out the hypocrisy of those who say we should not be involved in politics because you benefit from the involvement of others in politics. If you're a woman, if you were living in Denmark 100 years ago, you would not be allowed entry into a Danish university. Today that's a right you take for granted because others have fought for that right. So if others have fought for rights and benefits that we now enjoy, it is utter hypocrisy for us then to say, no, we should not get involved in politics because that's a dirty business. Church politics is often much dirtier and we are involved in that. The business world, maybe not in Denmark, but certainly in other countries, is dirtier than politics. And there are many Christians engaged in business. Does anybody want to add to that or how to respond to that question? Who knows more about the history of Denmark than I do?
Well, we might mention this anniversary this year, 175 years anniversary of Free State churches. We get the Constitution in Denmark saying that everyone can be a church without involvement of the state. That's what we're celebrating this year.
Yes.
So that was a liberty that was not allowed for people who were put in jail because of the restrictions before.
Yeah, that's why I said we need to be both humble and bold. Humble in that we must acknowledge that we have often betrayed the gospel. We have preached equality but not practiced it. Within the church as well as in society, we need to acknowledge our huge blind spots as a Christian church in Europe. We have betrayed the gospel in many different levels, but we also need to be bold in recovering and recounting those stories of Christians, whether in state churches or dissident free churches, who actually have made significant contributions to public life, and be able to tell those stories.
Yes, I think we'll have to quit here. Thank you so much. But Vinoth Ramachandra will be with us for the rest of the day, so please feel free to engage him with your further questions. So let's give him a round hand.